Good evening, this is Sergeant Dan with After Action Review, and tonight I'd like to give you my review on Hitman 3, a new installment on the Hitman series in addition to Agent 47's story. I can mainly only speak for this game because I have not played the previous installment as of yet. I have played Hitman 3 on the new Xbox Series X, and I would like to say, from the get-go, I have not been disappointed in the slightest. There was only one weird bug, which we will talk about later, when assets weren't loading in on a particular level. So, on the Xbox Series X, Hitman 3 will run at a native 4K with 60 FPS. If you would like more of a rundown on the FPS performance and resolution, you can go ahead and check the link down below for the Digital Foundry video. With that being said, my experience is that the game looks amazing. Even without traditional ray tracing implemented into the game as of yet, the effect that they use called screen space reflections looks very, very close to what we would be expecting for ray tracing. Probably not exact, but very good. Many different levels have the screen space reflections in various areas that make the game look very impressive. Since my knowledge for this is limited to Hitman 3, I'm also very impressed to see that the developers would allow you to bring in legacy maps like Hitman 1 and Hitman 2 maps with upgraded resolutions and graphics in various areas of those maps. With the instructions from the developers, it's easier to have the digital copies, but there's actual instructions on how to use your physical copies from the Xbox or PlayStation to pull in the legacy maps into this new game as well. I may at a later date do a review of both Hitman 1 and 2 and then their various maps on the Hitman 3 game just to see what visually has been upgraded on those games and possibly give a review on the previous titles as well. The controls in this game are very straightforward, giving you prompts on the screen for actions for subduing targets, carrying bodies, dragging bodies, placing them into different locations to hide them. Also, the movement and aiming in the game did not seem sluggish, slow, or held up with an auto aim feature. Even though there is an auto aim feature in the game for controller users, it did not feel like I was being forced onto targets all that often, and it did not seem to hinder my ability to perform any action or when I was fighting various NPCs. Now on to this weird texture bug I was discussing earlier. It happened in the 4th level, the end of an era, where you can see inside this laundromat where these washers their bodies have not rendered in. The textures for the outside portions have not rendered in, and you can see in certain angles that it looks like the interior disappears because the outside portions have not rendered in correctly. Beyond what you're seeing on the screen right now, I did not run into any other weird issues. I haven't seen floating items. I didn't see bodies flying through the air. Pretty much, this was the only bug. It wasn't game breaking, game ending, reset worthy. Although I did try and reset it at this portion to see if resetting it or restarting the stage would bring the textures in. Sadly enough, this did not work, so I'm curious to what could be the full issue to why they didn't render in. In this next portion, I'm going to be a little bit vague on the story to avoid any spoilers for people who have not played the game as of yet. With how well the prologues are done in this game, it actually helped me understand some of the story that I've missed since I have not played Hitman 2 before the first mission. So Agent 47 was sent out to kill previous members of of a rival organization. One of them actually being a friend that he grew up with. Agent 47's friend being Lucas. But in the end, after discovering that they were sent out to kill his friend, they decided to betray the organization known as Providence. And that's where your story begins, is that you are taking out members of this group to remove them from power, which is what is the main issue right now, is that they are a giant corrupt organization pretty much doing what they want, when they want, however they want. The organization at the time that you and Diane are fighting is also tracking you, in charge by the man coming up now, who is known as Charles Edward. He is the leader of the group and the one that is pretty much tracking Diane for a majority of the first half of the game. And while all this is going down, you are taking on missions to remove organization members from their protective positions, on top of trying to get information on Edward to ultimately try and bring him down as well. In total, there are 7 missions, which, depending on how you want to do the story, follow out the assassinations, pretty much removing people from the board, this game can take anywhere from the first run through of just doing the campaign between 5 to 7 hours, unless you want to be faster than that. That's pretty much all in your choice. But ultimately, with the amount of challenges and everything you can do pretty much on every map, you shouldn't treat this as a one and done game. There's hours upon hours of content after you finish the main storyline. Different ways to take out targets, different ways to approach targets, different ways to pretty much achieve your ultimate goal, which in the long run can definitely bring in a lot of challenges. You'll want to go ahead and do these stages multiple times to try and get the max level to pretty much make the stage load out anything you want to go ahead and do after that. On top of just going ahead and going back through the game to finish all these challenges, if you have Hitman 1 and 2 and have the ability to load these maps from 1 and 2 to 3, you have an additional story missions along with experience gathering planned loadouts for over 20 different levels. That's if you want to go ahead and bring in Hitman 1 and 2 stages with the graphical updates, resolution updates, and lighting upgrades for pretty much every level. With someone in my place, since I've not played the first 2, would probably be a very large benefit. Which is one of the big things I want to give kudos to the developer for this Hitman 3 IO Interactive. So with what I have put together and spoken about, in addition to the previous story levels from Hitman 1 and 2 and the smoothness of gameplay, but then also falling back onto that texture loading bug that we saw into the game, along with many things I may have missed as well, I'd be glad to give this game a 9 out of 10. This is definitely a pick up and try, and if you love challenges, it's definitely something that you'd want to try and complete 100%. The story is pretty engaging, and I do like how the story turned out in the end, and I do like how they pretty much led me down the path to get there. So this game is definitely a 9 out of 10 in my book. So let me know what you guys think. Have you guys played this game? Comment section down below. You all have a wonderful evening.